Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and with me today is a phenomenal woman who I had the pleasure of meeting at a networking event. I actually had a chance to hear her speak, and she was a treat and a pleasure to meet. This phenomenal woman is a coach, she's a speaker, she's an author, she's a teacher, she's a woman of God, and she has taken time out of her busy schedule to get with us today just to share a little bit of her journey and dealing with challenging and difficult times, and just showing us that no matter what the stakes are, no matter what those valley experiences may be, that there is a way for you to be able to persevere, to overcome any barriers or any challenges that may come forth before you, and that you don't have to worry about being stuck in those moments, but that you can overcome, you can break through, and that's not the end of your story. And she is a living example of just that, and trying to change lives and pour into as many people as God allows her the platforms to do so. So without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Miss Gwen Burnell. Thank you, Gwen, so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I thank you for the invite. And I just consider this to be just a privilege just to be able to spend this time with you. And I'm just excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm equally excited as well. And I know that by the time this show is over, probably before it's over, somebody's going to be blessed by the nuggets that you drop and the stories that you share. So greatly appreciate you being here. So before we jump into the actual segments of the show, I do want, of course, to give you an opportunity to give everybody a little taste, a little introduction of who Gwen is, what you do, where you're from, and just anything else that you'd like to share to kind of let people know what you're all about.
Sure, sure. Well, like Joseph says, my name is Gwen Burnell, and I actually live in Dallas, Texas. Originally, though, I'm from a small town in Georgia. So let me go ahead and give a shout out to that town, Sparta, Georgia. And if you're thinking it's Sparta, Mississippi, no, not in the heat of the night. It's actually Sparta, Georgia. And I get that a lot. And I'm married. I've been married for over 30 years, and I have three children who I consider my sweet peas. So I love being a mom, love being a wife, and yeah. And right now I practice Christian life coaching. I'm also a Ramsey financial coach. So at this point in my life, I'm pouring back into others a lot of the lessons that I've learned along the way, what God has taught me. I take joy from helping, enjoy in helping others learn some of these principles, godly principles.
Awesome, awesome. You already are impressive just with the intro, everything that you got your hands on right now, and just again, just allowing God to use you in a mighty, magnificent way, and that is so so exciting to hear. And I'm sure the experiences that you, some of which you're going to share with us today, is just phenomenal to be able to be in position like that, knowing that you can change lives and pour into people in ways that really need it. That need that direction. They need that person who's willing to come alongside them and encourage and uplift accordingly. So thank you for that. I do want to, of
Absolutely.
course, yes, absolutely. So I do want to go a little bit further in regards to who you are and what you're all about, because I believe with any journey in life, you really can't capture the full story without going back to the beginning of where it all starts. And so that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Is I want to take you back to your childhood. Take us back to Sparta, and if you would share with us, what was it like for you coming up? Fond memories that you have about coming up, as well as if there was any specific challenges that may come to mind that you had to encounter in your upbringing. What would you, if you would, I should say, please share with us. Kind of take us, give us that experience of what it was like for you in the beginning.
I will. I will. I love to share this part of me because I do consider my childhood, my connection to this small town to be the foundational piece of who I am. Um, I grew up, like I say, in the South, and it's rural and it's small. So, listeners, you can use your imaginations there. It's also a predominantly African American town. So, the fondness of that is growing up in this small community. Where you know a lot of the people, and in fact, you're probably related to a lot of the people.
Mm,
So I grew up in a community, where there was protection, there was security, People knew my family, I knew their relatives. It's like, well, you just know each other. So that was the kind of environment that I grew up in. And in my home, I have four brothers. One of my brothers has passed away, but I have four brothers. I didn't have sisters. But growing up, we were a very close family. The fond memories were the times that we did get to go on vacation together. That always stands out for me. Going to Disney World, who got to do that, right? That was pretty exciting for us, a real treat. Um, and also hearing laughter. My parents, the times were good, there was laughter in the home. There was humor, jokes being told, and hearing my dad tell a joke and my mom laugh at it. That stands out to me. And the other part that stands out to me is watching my mom and dad work together in building their lives together. And they, they had businesses and working together in, building that together. Those were the fond, good times that I remember and that I've taken away from my childhood and want to pass on, to my children as well. So those were that's the good side.
All right.
There were challenging sides as well.
Okay.
So should we get into that?
If you're comfortable in sharing, please do.
Okay. All right. So like I said, I was the only girl with four brothers my and so my parents were, very hardworking, and they just instilled in us the value of hard work, right? So um, my dad, I lived in a household where it was more, and this is primarily with my dad. I lived in a household where it was primarily, do as I say because I said it,
Mm,
you know, and there's no explanation offered with that. You just do it because I said it, and so that's more authoritarian, right?
mm-hmm.
That very strong, lay down the law. This is it. There's no flexibility in it. This is just the way it is. Okay. So that's what I grew up under. But at the same time, I was this kid who was curious. And I'm this kind of kid who like needed some explanations to go along with, your reasons, your decisions. It's like I was the kid who was like, okay, can you help me understand how you came to that decision and why is it my answer is no? So I'm this kid who has like these ideas and I want to go and do things and, experience such things, and running up against no was very, very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it just created a lot of tension in the relationship between myself and my dad. Just growing, and that was, pretty much our relationship throughout my childhood, because I felt like I was constantly running into a wall that I couldn't break through. And my dad didn't have the communication skills, to help me or to meet me. So I just lived in this space where I was just frustrated and I was angry. And so we butt heads a lot. We really butt heads. But at the same time, it was my dad who shaped the vision for my life, because he was constantly delivering the message, you will go to college, you will go to college, you will. I mean, I do not remember a time in my life where my dad did not have this plan, you know, already laid out for me. And I think the reason it meant so much to him is because, they did not have the opportunity to be educated, and they saw the limitations that came along with not having an education. So he wanted so much more for his children, and particularly for me, because I was the only girl, and it was important to him that I be able to provide for myself. It was very, very important. So, but I still had all that frustration and that anger to work through in the household. So I grew up with that, carrying that burden with me as a child, that, could not get that relationship with my dad that looking back, I would have wanted.
Mm.
But just as a child, not really being able to explain, what it is, why is it that my dad and I disagree so much.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that created so much heartache and so much pain for me. And at the same time, I knew that my dad loved me dearly. I know that he did. I knew that he did, right? I knew I was the apple of his eye. But with just not having the proper communication in place and him trying to seek and understand who I was as a person, as a child, it just created so many problems for us in our relationship.
Wow. Well, I first off,
Yeah,
again, I definitely appreciate your transparency and sharing that. Like you said, it wasn't that you didn't have this phenomenal home with lots of love and laughter and things like that, and even with your relationship with your dad, as you stated, I knew my dad, loved me. I knew he thought that I was, as you said, the apple of his eye. I mean, that's kind of the daddy daughter thing. I know how I am with my own daughter, and even as I was listening to you
right,
share that element of the struggle that you had in terms of communication wise, of you wanting to know more answers, especially when you were being told no, and I didn't take it as if you were being defiant or disrespectful. You just had a curiosity, like how did this
right,
particular decision arrived? And it was, as you stated, it was difficult for me to just accept the because I said so. But oftentimes for people like yourself and myself who grew up in those times, that was whether it was coming from the father or the mother, that was kind of what you were taught. You did what you did because I told you to, or because I said so. And also too, something that went on back then, and I think it even plays out even today, because I have this conversation all the time, is that as parents, we are always, many of us, I should say, are always wanting to, uh, I guess, provide a better life for our children. We want them to be able to navigate it better than say what we did, and so in the spirit of doing so, while our intentions are good, we can
mhm,
sometimes either restrict or go the opposite end and give too much leeway, to where trying to keep you away from all of what we consider to be the bad stuff, and you have to do it like this. We're planning your lives, in essence. We're trying to live our lives through you, thinking we're helping you,
right,
and instead of allowing you the opportunity to discover yourself, to find out who am I, what do I want to be, making sense of it all, whatever that is. I mean, the best job for you
right,
is not going to always, while college is great, the best job for you is not going to always be the one that pays six figures. If you don't get fulfillment in that, if
right.
you don't feel a connection to it, it may not be, for you. Like they say, all money is not good money. We know we need it. We know we need it to pay our bills. We know we need it to support our families.
Right,
But if I'm not happy with what I'm doing, if I'm not operating in the gift that has been placed inside of me, then what good is it if you're the only one that's pleased with it, but it's not your life, it's my life. And so striking that
exactly.
balance, that communication, and getting that clarity as to, why can't I do this? Why can't you explain this to me so that I can just have,
Right.
again, have a better understanding? It's not a disrespect thing. And so I get it when you say, you've kind of felt, that strain, or maybe just you wish that the lines of communication were just open just a little bit more, that maybe the relationship could have been a little bit more, palatable for you. Even though, again, you knew he loved you and you knew you loved him, it was just, you just felt like it was sort of restricted to a certain degree, and you wish it would have been a lot more open, where you could have shared maybe your dreams and aspirations, and perhaps gotten that support and encouragement to do just that. So I'm already feeling,
Well, it
kind
was
of
it
the,
was right. It was very, as I felt it, it was very restrictive. Looking back on it, the no's came from his experiences.
hmm
So he was parenting out of what he had experienced in life, whereas our lives were different paths and different tracks, but it was out of his experiences that he thought he was offering protection for
hmm
me, because my request would be simple. Can I go to this school event? No. Well, why not? It's like, in my mind, this is an innocent, event. This is something I just want to hang out with my friends. It's like, can you help me understand what's wrong with that?
hmm
Right. So, I wasn't able to get answers like that, which led to my frustrations and my anxieties and anger. And then, fast forward, and the tension continues to brew. But I graduate high school. And sure enough, my path is to go on to college, of course. This is my next step that I do decide to take, although it has been pre-written for me. This is what you will do. And so, but I do that, and that's fine, right? But my dad and I, we still have this strenuous relationship, and but I go off to college. I go off to an all girls private school, which made my dad very happy. Once I got there, he was happy because he saw a security fence around the
Hmm.
campus. But once I got there, it wasn't really a good fit for me, and I spent a couple of years at that school and then came to the realization that this is really not going to work because it didn't have the major that I was really interested in. So I wanted to transfer colleges. My dad did not agree with me transferring schools. He wanted me to stay there. And as a result of that, okay, we have to remember my dad's very strong willed, but in the process, he has also raised a very strong willed daughter. That's
Hmm.
what all this tension has created. So, as a result of my making this decision that I'm going to transfer school, whether I have my dad's approval or not, my dad makes a decision that he's going to cut me off financially.
Mm.
It was devastating because, regardless of what has happened in the past, I could always count on my dad being there for me. And now he was taking a stance that if you're going to make this decision, you go at it on your own. And and we had purchased a car together, and he had agreed to pay half the car payment. I would pay the other half, which was manageable. But he was handing me car payment. He was handing me my college education, figure it out. He was putting it all on my plate. And a part of me was thinking, well, maybe he'll come back or he'll come around.
Hmm.
And his biggest problem was that I was leaving being on campus and I would have to get an apartment and manage, life that way. And he just did not agree. And because he didn't agree, his answer to that was to just cut me off. And I could not really get around, I couldn't get out of my head, how does a parent cut off their child? How does that happen? Right? Because I'm still 18, 19, I'm still young.
Hmm.
How do you make the decision, okay, I'm going to let you go? And that was one thing that I had to, being that strong willed person, I still had to wrestle with that I was let go. And it's like sink or swim
Wow.
without my dad to call to say, can you come and get me? Because I'm drowning here. Can you
Hmm.
come get me? He wasn't, he cut ties. Even though he cut ties, I'm still going back home, but he was very stubborn in his position that, you know, he will not support me in this at all going forward.
So it's pretty
So
much
that's
a.
where the all that tension and the strain and all the angst from the relation, it starts to culminate, right? It starts to climax. You would think that it would start to level out. I'm getting older. We would have better communication, but it didn't. It just continued to escalate
Hmm.
until it reached a point where it was like,
Wow. Wow. And again,
mhm,
as parents, we could have all the greatest and best intentions in the world, but it's like,
right,
where do we draw that line where we say, okay, I have to respect the decision of my child. If my child is of an age to make those type of decisions, even if it's not one that was my number one choice, if I know that I've
right,
raised my child right, and he or she is not just kind of out here wilding out, so to speak, and just doing whatever, but just truly just trying to operate within what they desire to have. I get what you mean. Like, how could you How could you pull back on me on that? Even if you didn't,
Right.
even if you just wanted to see how I would do, and okay, let's try it
Right.
your way, and maybe we make an agreement. Especially if I'm giving you financial support, if this doesn't play out, if it's a struggle for you, if it's going to get you derailed and off track, then do we agree that maybe we consider going back or picking a different route? You may have been open to that because that was your whole challenge all along, and just there's this cut and dry answer. It was either yes or no, and that was it.
Right.
No in between, no
Right.
negotiation, no conversation, just no,
Mhm.
you know. And there are many people, men and women, young men and women who've come up in those type of environments, and a lot of times
Right.
it doesn't end well in the sense of it fractures relationships that shouldn't be fractured, all because of everybody's trying to hold their ground, if you will. And I
Mhm.
respect the
Mhm.
fact that again that you held your ground. I mean, and I don't see it, even though I wasn't physically there at the time. Obviously, there's nothing about the way you told that story that made me feel like you were trying to be defiant or disrespectful. You were just saying, "Hey, I'm just trying to do what I think is best for me. Give me that grace, give me that room, that
Right.
if I've misjudged this and it didn't play out the way you were trying to tell me that you were concerned about, then as my father, my hope would be that you'll be there to, if I do fall, that you'll be there to pick me up and not be over me to say I told you so or anything like that. But you at least gave me an opportunity to
Absolutely.
show you that that was a big girl and I could make this decision and make you proud, and so to be
Exactly.
denied that can be a little bit overwhelming. It could be frustrating when you don't do it the way that the parents want you to do. And like I said, I think
Mhm.
it's a timing thing of what those days were like back then, because they were operating off of what they went through or what they experienced.
Their
And so they were basing
experiences.
their experience on you. Again, good
Yes.
intentions, but not
Absolutely.
necessarily applicable to what I'm dealing with
Right.
today and what I desire to do in life. So I appreciate you sharing that. Because I think again,
Sure.
somebody's listening and they're going through that right now, or have experienced that right now, and it's created a strain that, like I said, is transferred all the way into adulthood, into other areas, to who you choose to marry, where
Mhm.
you choose to work, where you choose to live. I mean, like at what point do I grow up? I know I'll always be your baby,
Right.
but I'm a
Exactly.
grown man or I'm a grown woman. When do you cut the ties, if you will, but and still be supportive of me in the meantime? So I appreciate your
So when I
vulnerability in
look
sharing that.
back on it, Joseph, when I look back on it, I see myself as this little girl who always wanted, to have my dad acknowledge, just say, "Hey, see me. See, I'm right here. See me as Gwen. I want
Hmm.
hear me, listen to me, understand me." So I was always this little girl was like, "Do you see me? Are you hearing? And are you understanding anything about me?" Right? So I was that girl who was always trying to like see if I had an answer to those questions. This is how I process it now looking back. And of course, as I was seeking to be seen and to be heard and to be understood, as I said earlier, I was continuing to run up against a wall where I was not getting any kind of validation. Yes, you are there physically present, but I'm not seen as Gwen. I was not heard as Gwen. It didn't matter. The voice didn't count, right? It's
Hmm.
just, this is what you will do, right? And it took its toll. So I want to share how it took its toll, how it really played itself out. And I want, and I share this, so that others will understand this is what this could look like. I can share with you what it looked like for me. This is how it played itself out. So remember, I'm leaving home. Now I'm in a major city. I'm no longer in that protected rural town.
Hmm.
Now I'm in a major city, um, continuing on with my college education as a young girl. But I'm also this still deep down inside, I'm still this little girl who wants to be seen, who wants to be heard, who wants to be understood. And what comes along as this young woman trying to pursue this college education and just get on with her life? Well, it's not what comes along, but who comes along. So an older man comes along, who says the right thing, who looks, the right way, who, sounds good, look good, has this message, that's resonating with what's missing in me. It's what's missing is what he's willing to provide. And this particular man is 10 years older, and I'm 19, 20 years old. But I'm fragile, right? And I'm vulnerable because of what I've come out of with my childhood. So it was easy for me to latch on and connect with someone who made these, big promises. You know, I'll be the one to listen to you. I will take care of you. You know, I can help you. But what did that really end up being? It ended up being one of the biggest lies and one of the biggest regrets of my life because he not only lied about who he was, but who he really was a physical abuser. So now I find myself as a young woman and I'm connected, tied up in this domestic abusive situation
Mm.
because I've connected with someone who I believe to be a certain person, and he turns out to be the opposite. Still
Wow.
seeking to be seen, still want to be heard. I just want to be understood. And it becomes one of the worst mistakes of my life because once I got in that relationship, it was very, very difficult to get out of it. And and the only thing that really kept me going was, believe it or not, I got to finish college. Like, no matter how bad the relationship got, no matter how bad the beatings were, the next day I needed to be sitting on campus in a classroom in a seat because I need to graduate college.
Hmm.
And that's all I knew.
Wow. So I
It
think
was
it's fair to
devastating.
yes. I can again. I can only imagine, and that's the best way I could say that because obviously I wasn't in that situation that you just spoke to. And again, I want to acknowledge your transparency in that to go from feeling emotionally abandoned, if you will, with that lack of communication with your father, and then to find someone who's filling that void, at least appearing to, given that facade of filling that void, and in your vulnerability, you lock into this only to discover that it's a setup, if you will, for something that's much more tragic and severe in nature, mentally, emotionally, physically,
Mhm.
and perhaps even spiritually. I can
Oh,
only
for sure.
imagine what that burden, what that weight is. I usually on the show we ask about a time, when you found yourself in a situation where you weren't sure if you're going to get out of that, and I think this probably qualifies as one of those times where you were doubting, you were wondering,
This is it.
how am I going to get through this? I mean, my relationship with my dad is fractured. I'm with this man who I thought was going to fill the void. He's doing completely opposite of that. And now my dreams of finishing college are still there, but every day I go to school. But then when I come out of school, I don't know if this is going to be one of those moments to repeat itself in terms of the domestic abuse and the mistreatment
Right.
and things of that nature. So with that said, kind of if you would please tell us at what point, I know you said that, pursuit of your education was a big motivator to kind of keep you going because that was something at least positive that you had to look forward to as you were in the midst of this storm. What ultimately got you to that moment where you were able to finally say, I have to physically remove myself, aside from the fact that I'm trying to get my education? How were you able to eventually break free from this otherwise abusive relationship so that you can begin to uh, initiate that healing process for yourself?
Sure. So you would think that the abusive relationship was the lowest point that I could go, that once I got there, now I'm going to start figuring my way up. Well, it goes a little bit lower than that
Okay.
because the abusive relationship became such a burden and such a pressure And like you say, it was a situation where I could not figure my way out because I was dealing with a man filled with rage, filled with jealousy, and I couldn't just say, "Okay, it's over and it's done." That wasn't the way that the relationship was going to end. Tried that, that didn't work. Okay, so with him being older, that meant that, and I'm a lot younger, he held a bit more power, over me in the relationship.
It was almost like
So,
dad
but
over again
eventually, I just
saying no.
exactly,
No, you're not going to go anywhere.
exactly,
No, because I said so. It's like,
exactly.
I'm
I'm
sorry, go
back
ahead,
in the
continue.
same situation,
Hmm.
but worse. Worse. So, and so it reached a point where the pressure was just so much, it was so heavy. I couldn't see my way out, and the only solution I could come up with is I'm just going to have to end it. I'm just going to have to end my life. So I go into my closet. I'm sitting on the floor. I actually have a gun. And I have a gun because someone tried to rape me, or a rapist attacked me earlier, different story. And I went home, and as a mean of trying to protect myself, my dad taught me how to shoot the gun and gave me a gun to take back with me to the city. So this is why I have a gun. But this is fast forward, from that time. But this is why I have a gun. So at my lowest point, I find myself sitting on the floor in the closet with this gun, and I just don't see a future ahead of me, and I can't get out of this dark situation I'm in. So the best answer I can come up with is just to take myself out of it. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, I can do this. And I think about my parents, my family, and I reason that they'll be okay. They'll get past it. But then I come to God and I think about God. And when I get to him, I I can't I can't reason the suicide with God. I can't reconcile it. And in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how can I end my life and then just go on and be with God. But I could not reconcile meeting God and saying that I took my own life. And that was the thought that stopped me. I didn't want to meet God that way. I didn't want to have that conversation with God. And so I cried out to God for his help. And I grew up in a Christian home, but it wasn't at the point where I knew lots of scriptures or tons of scripture. Although I do believe I was saved, I did believe in God. I cried out to him. And I think God honored that cry. That's all I had. Help me. Help me. And I think he honored that cry. Eventually, I did graduate from college, barely. Barely. It was a situation, just give me the degree and let me just go on. So can't say I graduated with honors. I can just say that I graduated. And my dad was there. He was very proud of that moment. But this is how God showed up. So during the process of graduating, I just started sending out resumes to various companies. And a company, an organization responded to a resume out of state and flew me out for an interview. And I ended up getting the job, which I consider miraculous because there was nothing uniquely special about me, that there was sufficient job pool in the area where I was relocating to have found a candidate for that job. But this is how God intervened in my situation and at least gave me physical distance to be able to breathe and start to rebuild my life.
Mm. What a powerful testimony that you just shared. And, again, but God, that's
But
just
God,
how That's just how God works. He knew what you were
Mhm.
enduring, what you were going through, and as painful as the story was, none of these things happen by accident. And sometimes God has to bring us to our lowest points, to where we willingly, and I want to emphasize willingly, just say, open ourselves up to Him. And you did that in that moment with gun in hand, ready to end it all. In that brief moment, you opened up to Him, and He was able to speak to you. He probably was already speaking to you, but you just weren't hearing Him. But in that moment, you were able to hear Him, and He was able to speak to you in a way that reminded you that there is value in your life. I didn't just give you this for you to just decide on your own when you were going to end it. I have work for you to do. I have blessings in store for you to experience. So I know that this is painful. I know that this is hard. I had to allow you to go through it because of what I was setting you up for, blessings wise, down the road. But now it's not the time for you to end this. And not only am I going to get you out of this situation, but when it's all said and done, you're going to be in a safe space, a safe place. You said, I applied for this job, and again, I didn't bring anything uniquely special to the table. There had to have been tons of applicants out there that were equally or more qualified than me, but yet I got picked anyway. And that's just that reminder that what God has for you is for you. It doesn't matter
It's
who
for
was the better choice on paper or whatever, who would have been a better fit. When God decides that you are to be placed in a particular situation, position, or otherwise, it's for you.
mhm,
And that's what you just
absolutely.
shared was the exact blueprint of that. It was for you, not only for a career
Mhm.
perspective, but again, to be in a safe space where now you're able to, rebuild your life. You're able to move forward in a positive, with a positive mindset. But more importantly, you now have a newfound relationship with Christ, because you understood that when you thought that your biological dad wasn't there for you, and when you thought that this man who was trying to be dad like to you wasn't there for you, you found out that the ultimate father, the, the the biggest of fathers that are out there, he was there for you, and he gave you confidence once again that, you know, the father is there for his daughter. He can pour into you unconditional love and the protection and the validation. He's willing to open up and answer some of your questions. When you say, "Well, why God? Why not this?" and
Mhm.
instead of that, and now you're finally getting those answers that
Yeah.
you had been seeking all of this time. you know it was just a matter of you having to go through what you go through to have an appreciation for those conversations, and the value of that relationship, and what it looks like, and what it means, and how it feels. And I'm just thankful that as I know you are, just thankful that you were able to come out of that situation, but more importantly, just to see God in a way that you probably before that never imagined that you would. But just think about how game changing and life changing it's been for you, not only in that moment, but again, what He's done for you since then. You know, eventually
Right.
connecting you with
Absolutely.
a loving husband, and eventually connecting you with beautiful children, and eventually connecting you with just wonderful experiences. Sure, I'm pretty certain that along the way you've had other rough patches and disappointments and shortfalls and all that, as we all do. But when
Sure.
you tell a story like you just told, and then I'm looking at you, and I've seen you not only here virtually but in person, you don't look like what you've been through. But that's not by accident. That's by design. That's just God's anointing over you to make you not look like what you've been through. And that's a powerful
Well,
testimony.
the scripture that God restored what the locust stole, what the
Mm-hmm.
locust took away. God restored. So I have experienced what you're looking at now is complete restoration. What you were looking at when I was sitting in that closet was, I didn't, there was no value in myself. I didn't recognize, I could not perceive any value in me. The value that I did perceive was the value that was associated with God. It was enough, I knew enough of value associated with Him that was enough for me not to go through with it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to value in myself, I had nothing. Because when you go through a domestic abusive, physically abusive relationship, you're beaten down to nothing. You have absolutely, there's no confidence, there's no self-esteem, There's no positive image. It's all beaten out of you. And so what we did, God, we started this journey of rebuilding. And it was step by step by step, just rebuilding, rebuilding, rebuilding. But the rebuilding didn't really come to a head until I started Bible study, where I really started to understand who God is. And this was a few years later, really sitting down in a Bible study that was very methodical, committed to the word, and taught me in a way that I learn and I understand, a step by step methodical approach. Remember, I'm still this curious person, still seeking to know and to understand, wanting the knowledge. And when God presented me with a Bible study that did that for me, and I spent a year in that study, then I knew that
Wow.
there is a God and he loves me dearly. And he is the one, and he is the only one who will ultimately completely understand me and see me and hear me. He is the one. I cannot assign that to any other human. God gets me and I'm good.
That's awesome. That's
He
awesome,
gets
man.
me.
He does. He gets you
God
because he
gets me.
created you. He created you. That's why he
He
gets you.
created me.
He knows every stitch, every lining, every component of what you're made of and
Everything.
how you feel and how you respond to this, that, and the other. He knows that. And so who better to be able to connect with and come to in moments like
Right.
that? And as I shared earlier, you had to go through what you went through because he had to literally kind of gut you out.
Yes.
He had to completely empty
It
you,
was
and then through his method, through his process, he began to refill you, to restore you, to
yes.
to get you prepared in such a way that when we fast forward, this is why you're able to,
Hmm.
credit yourself as this, certified Christian life coach. Whose life are you gonna coach from a godly perspective if you've never been through anything? You can speak from those
Right.
dark spaces that perhaps many of the
Yes.
people that come to you for counseling, you now can pour into them different, and it's not just
Right.
textbook. I'm not just reading you the
Yeah.
scientific formulas and the I can speak to you from a much deeper place because I've been in
Right.
that darkness. I know what that darkness feels like, what it looks like. And so
Hmm.
therefore you have the ample amount of empathy, the ample amount of encouragement and support that the people who come before you, whether they're women, men, or otherwise, you can pour into them in a way that's relatable. They'll feel your authenticity, your genuine nature, because you know what that pain feels like. You know what that hurt and that darkness, that
Right.
loneliness, that abandonment feeling feels like. That abuse, mental,
And the
physical,
other the other
emotional.
thing that I also know, yeah, and the other thing that I also know, Joseph, is I know how the enemy feeds us lies for us to believe.
Hmm.
And I know what the lies sound like. So when I'm listening to someone, who shows up for coaching, or I'm just engaging with someone, I listen to what is actually coming out, of their mouth, because this is telling me these are the thoughts that you're having. And I listen for the lie. And then I'm able to present truth to expel the lie,
Wow. That
because a
is
lot of my hurt and setback was based on fears, anxieties, lies. A lot of that grew out of just growing up in fear, creating a life. There were lies along the way that you thought were the truth. You actually think the lies are the truth, and you act on them. But whereas it's the enemy coming up against you, to kill, steal, destroy, to divide. And so it's very important to me. It's like, recognize the lie, and let's pull it out by the roots and get rid of it.
phenomenal, phenomenal, and it just again, it's just amazing how God works. We don't always understand it. It's not always logical to us because we sometimes want to put God in a box and in a perfect formula, and he just has his own way, and we just have to trust in that and lean into
Yes.
that. And I'm just thankful for you that you were able to do just that, and again allow God to restore you, to replenish you, to form and shape and mold you in such a way to where now you are being utilized as a blessing to other people. And I'm sure every time you have an opportunity to bless other people, you are by default receiving a blessing. You're still healing, you're still restoring, but it's
Oh,
you're able to take that pain and navigate that and flip it around to help people find their purpose, to find reasons to live so that they
mhm.
don't find themselves sitting in that closet with the gun, or find themselves grabbing hold of a
Right.
bottle of pills, or doing some other harmful things to themselves, feeling like there's no way out. You give them that hope
Mhm.
by allowing God to use you through his word, through his blessings, through his promise, to be able to pour into people. And that's just a special uh, opportunity that you have. And I'm sure it's been a wonderful and fulfilling experience for you in being able to do such a thing. So that's awesome. That is awesome, Gwen.
Yeah. And if I may, yes. And if I may share one more point just
Absolutely.
on how good God was to me in all of this, because my dad did pass away. And but God in his goodness and in knowing what I would need, created an opportunity for my dad and I to come back together as he was dying. And as my dad was dying, his last few days, he said to me, "I'm sorry.
Mm,
I'm sorry for all of what I've done. I'm sorry." And God knew that I needed that, and He provided that to me. And I'm just so very grateful.
yeah. And
So
again,
my dad and I, we had our moment to bring it back together, right? And
hmm
and his best days, our best times together were the latter days because we sat and we talked. In his final months of being alive, we talked. And he shared, moments with me from his childhood. I got to understand him a little bit better because we have to think about it. It's like, when was he seen? Or when was he heard? When was he understood? Right? It was all based out of his experiences. Looking back, I can come to those conclusions. But through it all, God kept me through it all.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Just how he, like you said, he set that full circle moment up for you so that, in his passing, you don't walk away with regrets. You don't walk away with bitter feelings. You had an opportunity to bring closure
Mhm.
in a very peaceful, calming way. You had an opportunity to do what, even if it was later in life, we had a chance to communicate with one another. We had a chance to share and engage. The very thing that you always wanted from as far back as you could remember, you were able to close that chapter off, having
Yeah,
fulfilled that
right.
void, that need, and you were able to do it with a peace. And that's the way to go. I mean, regardless of what, strenuous times might have taken place, or bumping of the heads or whatever, to just know that you were able to, for both you and him, to just bring that
Mhm.
closure on a positive note, is a wonderful thing. And you have to give credit to God for that, because that's just how he works it out. He had to create the moment, allow that moment to go through its
Absolutely.
rocky ways, but in the end, it was all right. Everything was all right.
Yes.
And so
Everything was all right.
that's powerful. That's powerful. So, Gwen, I'm curious, um, as you've moved along in life, again, facing all types of, adventures and challenges and the like, I'm curious to know, what is your process that you like to use, today, if you will, that helps you to deal with challenging moments? I mean, it doesn't even have to be something as extreme as what you've shared, just the basic everyday nuances that we sometimes are up against. What is it that you like to do that helps you to kind of keep a level head and stay focused as you're working through that moment of adversity or challenge that's before you?
Hmm. Well, first and foremost, I have to stay grounded in the word. I have to stay very, very close to God. I, I I cannot get too far from him. I cannot get too far from him. I have to read the word, or I'm reading what, other commentators about the word. It's like, it's a part of who I am. It's just, I, I I have this desire that I just have to know who God is. Who is he really? And and since we'll never really fully know him, it's like it will be my drive into eternity, right? So just by, practicing and just making a practice of just keeping God a part of my life, it helps me to navigate life, to keep him fresh in front of me and with me, knowing that he's always here with me. He never left me. He's proven that, whether in my life or sending his son, he's proven that to me. And so I have to, whatever comes my way, I have to have God with me, experiencing it with me as I receive it. Okay. So it's very important to me not to panic, because when I panic, then my mind, I cannot think clearly, and my decisions are not as strong when I panic. So it's very important for me to remain calm and to weigh out the different options as to how I need to proceed in any challenge. But if God's not going, I'm not interested.
Mm.
Where when he moves, then I want to move. But if God's not moving with me, I'm not moving. And knowing, and I have this confidence that if I were to move ahead of God, I know that he's right there with me and he's going to get me where I need to be. So, how do I face challenges? How do I face setbacks? Yeah, I may cry. Yeah, I may be disappointed, but I'm not too far from God. And I'm looking for him and how he's going to respond in the situation and what he wants me to do, knowing that he's my ultimate protector in it all. And he causes all things to work together for the good. It's a verse I live by. It's a verse I live by. And I believe it.
Wow. And that's so important what you just said. You know, because in the beginning, when you don't know God, then the goal is to,
Yeah.
is to get connected with God, to establish that relationship. Once you've gotten to know who God is and you establish that relationship, then the priority shifts. Now I got to stay here. I can't afford to drift, because as you were saying that, I was thinking the same thing. Every time that I found myself getting out of that routine of staying close to God, whether it was staying in the Word or staying in prayer or just bringing whatever it is that's going on in my life to Him. Whenever I found myself, of course, the common term is backsliding. When you find yourself drifting away or backsliding away from God, not checking in with Him like you used to, treating it like a long distance relationship instead of a close bond.
Yes.
It's in those moments, if I'm being transparent, if I'm being honest, that's when I've gotten myself in the troubles or situations that I probably could have avoided, or I might have even still been in that situation, but it wouldn't have been as rough for me had I not drifted
Exactly.
away. So you saying, I have to stay there. I mean, and I heard you say that, and it was so passionate. The first thing that I connected it with was like, it's just like breathing. Just as much as I gotta have breath in my body, I
Yeah.
have to have God. It's like I can't breathe without Him. I can't, function without Him.
I
And
can't.
so it's something that I have to be intentional about doing. I have to be consistent. I have to be disciplined in doing it, because it's about
Yes.
making sure that I stay ready. And that's another element, a layer of what I like what you said, because you didn't, when I asked you this question, you weren't speaking as someone who waits for the situation to happen and then tries to prepare for it.
Mm-mm.
You're trying to stay ready. knowing that it's going to
Stay
come.
ready.
I don't know when it's going to come. I don't know how hard it's going to come. But whenever that happens and however it happens, I'm ready because I don't allow myself to drift. You know, I'm
Right.
still human,
And
so I'll still have,
the other,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, the other motivating piece to that, Joseph, why I'm so committed to staying close to God, if I know that if I'm not pulling, drawing from God, then I'm going to attempt to draw from myself. Okay, that means I'm going to be depending on myself. Lean not on your own understanding. I'm going to be trying to resolve myself. I'm going to be trying to use my own thoughts, my own ideas, and not tapping into wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've already seen the depths of my darkness where it takes me. I've already seen what that looks like. Right? Even if it's not the depths. In other situations, when I've decided, okay, I'm going to do this just because it sounded good to me, not consulting with, God, is this what you have for me? Is this, let's do this, is this what you would have for me to do next? Is this is your will? Not even a prayer, if this is your will, just taking off on my own and doing it myself. Well, I already know what that looks like. And that's just not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. It ain't nobody's fun.
you're exactly you're exactly right. I mean, there's something special about wisdom. There's a lot of smart people
Yes.
who know a lot of
There's
facts
a
and
lot.
figures. Even in the Christian circle, there's a lot of folks who can every other page can quote, half the scriptures that's on it. But it means nothing
Yeah.
if you don't know how to apply it to your day-to-day walk. It means nothing if you don't know how to if you're not committed to living it. You just sound like you're smart. You sound like you got it all together, but you really don't because
Mhm.
the lifestyle, the way that you conduct yourself is not reflective of all this stuff that you say that you know or believe in, so we have to embrace that and we have to make it a necessary part of who we are, our inner being, our core. And it's something, like I said, to be honest, I have to remind myself of that all the time, and it's just, because we can get caught up in the day to day of life and,
For
and just,
sure.
and in an instance, if we're not careful, that's where the enemy creeps in and gets us distracted
Yes.
and finding things that making things be more important that really aren't to be important. That
Sure.
oh, you want to do this? Let me take you there. Let me lead you down this path. And in doing so, I've missed out on that time to spend with God. Whether it's in study or in prayer, because I allowed myself to get
Mhm.
caught up in something that was really a distraction more so that than a necessity of something that was really pertinent and important in that moment. At least it wasn't more important than getting with God, or relying upon God, or sometimes when life is rolling along really well for us and we haven't had any hiccups lately, we get to feeling ourselves a little bit and thinking that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are running it and we got it all. Well, no. I mean, it's great that things are
No.
running smooth right now, but it's usually in those seasons, if it's been going real smooth for an extended period of time, chances are something's on the way. And so you want to be ready so when it comes, it doesn't just flatline you. You're able to take that hit, you're able to take that blow and keep fighting. And in reverse, when you're in
Sure.
those low dark moments, that's actually a good time because while it may not feel good, if you have that relationship with God,
Right.
one thing is that if he has you going through that, he's got something cooking. Something is working in your favor that if you can just get through this season, through this moment, you are getting ready to walk into something special. So that's where we talk about counting it all joy. Those good days and those not so those not feel so good days. We gotta love on both of them because they all have a purpose. They all
Right.
have a collective meaning on our lives. And so again, I just love
And
your approach.
the other thing, yeah, and the other thing to that, Joseph, is like regardless of where we find ourselves, the circumstance that we may find ourselves in, we still have to represent God. We still have to show him. We still have to show God is loving me no matter where I am. We have to show God's love to a world that's in dire need of his love. Just because I hurt or I may be in distress, that's not an excuse for me not to stand up and be able to say, um, God, call on his name. He's Almighty God. Even in the midst of my suffering, he's still Almighty God. We
Hmm.
still have to bear witness to his name, is what I'm saying, regardless of what our circumstances are. And,
Absolutely.
that's our role as a believer. So you have, like you were saying earlier, we have to be prepared. We have to be ready. I may be up today, down tomorrow, but God remains the same. I don't take him up and down with me. His plan is still in place. The mission goes forward.
You're so right. I mean, that's absolutely correct. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that or anything. You give it to us
Yeah.
straight like it is, and that's how we have to be. I mean, it's not always easy, and it's very easy
No.
to get distracted. It's very easy to take a day off, if you
Oh, yeah.
will, But we
Yes.
have to be consistent and not and relentless and persistent in what in that relationship, trying to make it as close as we possibly can, trying to get out of it as
Yes.
much as we can in terms of the guidance, the wisdom, the direction, the discernment, all of those things that are going to matter in our ability to not only deal with the stormy times of life, but also in order for us to operate at the highest of levels in the various works that God has for us to do. To be to be the
Yes.
best versions of ourselves in those respective areas where our gifts are being utilized, so that we can be effective and have those positive impacts that we're desiring to have with the people that God is connecting us with to serve. So
Sure.
that's definitely important. So Gwen, if you had an opportunity to speak to the younger version of Gwen, or that Gwen who was going through an abusive time, that Gwen who maybe felt abandoned, that Gwen who felt like nobody understands me and nobody's trying to hear what I have to say or cares about my voice and my desires and my aspirations in life. There's possibly somebody who's listening to this podcast that is in that mode right now. They feel the same way. They're in an abusive situation. They're feeling abandoned. They're feeling like their voice or their it doesn't matter. Like they're just existing. They're just out here to be a pleaser to anybody else and what they want, but that their desires are insignificant or unimportant and irrelevant. Um, if you had a chance to speak to that person, or again that younger version of you, what would be the words of wisdom that you would have to share that you think would be valuable in helping someone in that state of mind, right, in that state of emotion and feeling, to be able to have a different perspective, a different outlook, and a better way overall to just navigate being in that dark space?
Sure. Sure. Um, well, first of all, I would say be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself. To the point where you are able to see and appreciate what really is special about you, and not look to others, but to be able to see it yourself. But even more importantly, I would hope that you could look beyond yourself and recognize that there is a God, and this God who created you knows every single detail there is to know about you. And what he knows about you, he loves every bit of it. So when you think that you're all alone, you never are. It's just the enemy trying to isolate and separate you from God. So maybe, you're not connected to God and you don't get the whole God language. It's a simple prayer and a cry out to just ask him to just help you, to just reveal himself to you. He works in amazing ways. You will just be blown away by how he will respond, the people who will come into your life, who will help you, who will give you that positive word in your time of need. To just, and then just understand that you don't have to have the whole answer for your entire life in one setting. You just simply need to be able to take the next step. That's all. And that next step doesn't have to be huge. Just one small, simple step for yourself is all you need to get going in the right direction. The only thing I did was accept the job, send out the resumes, and I accepted the job. But he provided, and I just followed where he was leading. So that would be my advice. God knows. And when you think you're not seen, heard, or understood, believe me, you are more than you realize.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful advice. I mean, it's all about taking that first step, and like I said, it doesn't even have to be a big step. Just make an effort. Just take that initiative. Like I said, even if you're somebody who, as you stated earlier, you may not even be a believer yet. Okay, well, and I get it. If you've heard some things, but you're not sure, you have some doubts or whatever. Okay, what harm is it for you to just try him? In terms of just
Ask.
saying, you know what, I've heard all this stuff about you. I'm not convinced just yet, but you know what? I'm gonna take a step to you to see if what I've been hearing, what people have been saying, if there's some truth to that. So, okay, God, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through. If you are the God that I'm hearing about, please reveal that to me. It's not a
Yeah.
challenge. It's just saying, I'm willing to give you an opportunity to show me what I'm missing, where am I
Yes.
not making the connection at? And I promise you,
Hmm.
and Gwen will promise you, if you do that, just give him an opportunity to show you. He will far go over and beyond exceed your expectations. And,
Over and beyond.
but yes, so you take that first step, you combine that with that patience, because he's not a genie in a lamp. He's not, Santa Claus. You don't snap your fingers and everything just fixes itself. There, not to say that he's not capable of that. He very much is, but some stuff is a process. But if you're willing to be open and patient and just take a step forward and just ask, watch him reveal to you the answers to your those questions that you've been wondering about. When, as Gwen has shared throughout, you now don't just get the no, you get the why behind the no, you know.
Hmm.
And just again, the way God moves is that he doesn't always reveal to you every single blow by blow detail. You have to come a little bit
No.
forward, and then he'll reveal to you what to do, and then you just have to go do it. Even if you don't know how it's all going to play out, even if you don't know every little intricate detail, if you trust and know that and understand that his record is undefeated, that he's flawless, that he doesn't make mistakes, that's all you need to know. I mean, I can
Yes.
sit here as long as I want to trying to think of the time, one time when it was God's fault that something didn't happen for me. And I guarantee you, I can't think of one time. I can think of plenty of times when it was my fault. And even when it was my fault, it was because I was trying to do it my way instead of
Yes.
asking him for the direction and guidance on how to do it. I was trying to figure it out on my own. I was trying to play him, you know,
Yes.
and, but every time that I've listened to him, even when it didn't make sense to me, even if I didn't know how and why, like clockwork, every single time it is played out. So that's definitely wonderful,
Hmm.
awesome advice that you're giving to somebody who might be in that stuck moment, because there's plenty women and men who are in that stuck moment right now and just trying to figure it all out. And but the problem is that they're trying to do it all by themselves, and they don't have to.
Yeah.
That
You don't
there's a
have to.
help available to you. There's an extended hand that's just waiting for you to just say, like what you said when you were in the closet, just help me. Uh,
Help
Tell me
me.
what to do. Whatever that is, I don't
Yeah.
know. Because what I've been trying to do
Right.
is not working. So help me, and just watch God
Hmm.
go to work. So
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Awesome
Yeah.
stuff. So, Gwen, before I let you go, I do, of course, want to end everything on a high note. We want to love on you,
Yes.
celebrate you, affirm you, acknowledge you, all that good stuff. So, please share with us what exciting news you got going on. We know you got the book. Tell us a little bit about that. But anything else that you got going on, please let us know about it so we can celebrate that and figure out how to connect with you and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm so excited about my first book that I've written. Let's see, are we able to show it? Um, it's entitled Created to Be. Yeah, yay. Joseph
Yeah.
has his copy. Thank you so much for the support. But I'm so excited about this. It's like I released this book this year. It's entitled Created to Be. And from listening to me, you probably have an idea what it's about. Is about you're going to need a relationship with God. That's exactly what this book is about. I pull from various scenarios in the from the Bible. I go through it and I look at how the relationship and the interaction happens between Jesus and that particular person. And then I pull lessons out of it. It's like, and this is what we can learn from it. This is what we can put into our practice. Whether we need to be persistent in our relationship, we need to be mindful, we need to be knowledgeable. But I go through 10 different cases where we need to be, um, and we need to be about the Father's business is the chapter. But that's all discussed in the book. You can find the book on Amazon. And again, the name of it is Created to Be. So, and like I said earlier, I am a certified Christian life coach. I'm also a Ramsey financial coach. I just love coming alongside others, helping them create an orderly lifestyle, helping them win mentally and financially, all so that it honors God. Whatever, your life has been created to honor God. That is the message. And He is using all my experiences. He's using my education because it didn't stop when I barely crossed that stage. God has granted me the opportunity to earn two master's degrees. He has taken all of that. I've been married for 30 years. I've raised three kids. One of my kids is special needs. So I have so much. I'm so blessed with what God has gifted me. And I want to take that and pour it into others' lives to help them along the way. And I'd love to come and, speak for your organization, do workshops or as a keynote speaker, whatever your needs are. Love to hear from you in that vein. I also lead a weekly Bible study if you're interested in that. Reach out to me via the website. The website is displaystrength.com.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
that's who I
Awesome.
am. That's what I'm about right now, building the practice, the coaching practice.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Gwen has told you the blueprint of how to reach her, what all services and all product offerings that she has, from the book to counseling services to speaking opportunities. She's doing the full gambit. And if you haven't figured it out by now, you should know that she's clearly a woman of purpose and just really desiring to be of service to others, really just trying to be a game changer in as many lives as she can possibly impact. And she's just an example, like I said, of someone who is allowing God to use her and all the gifts that He has within to make a special mark on this world, a world that's hurting on so many levels and in so many ways right now. So, we don't want to take lightly when we have the opportunity to connect with people like Gwen, very special, unique individuals that it's been a pleasure to know. And I know personally I've been blessed by everything that she shared today. And I'm just excited to see what more is going to come about from Gwen and all of her adventures and activities and anything else that God would is laying forth for her to be a part of and experience. So much blessings to you. We're happy for you, congratulating you. Prayers all over you. That God will continue to use you in a mighty and magnificent way. So thank you so much for sharing that, for sharing your journey, your story, and doing it in such an authentic and transparent way. And I'm confident, I am convinced somebody has been blessed today in listening to your story. And if nobody else wants to admit it, I'll be the first one to lead the charge and say that I have been blessed to hear your story and just the strength and resilience that you've shown over the course of your life, despite the challenges and uphill battles that you've been up against. So But any of you who have had an opportunity, of course, today to watch the show, if you've enjoyed the content, if you've enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, please like, please comment, please share. Tell others about what we're doing here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, because this is what it's all about. This is what you're going to get every episode. Encouraging, inspiring, uplifting, empowering, just lifting the veil and laying it all open on the line, putting it all out on the line to let you know that no matter what it is that you're going through, there's nothing too big for God. And if you decide to connect with him, if you're not already in relationship with him, to make that decision will be the best decision that you'll ever make. And even if you are in relationship with him, this is another reminder as to why that decision was so relevant for you to do. And more importantly, as Gwen shared earlier, why we have to be consistent and intentional in our efforts to stay close to him. We can't take a moment off in that, no matter what our relationships are, financial, parental, spousal, friendship wise, whatever it is, he has to follow us throughout all of those relationships. And if you find yourself in any scenario where he's not in the room, that's probably a good red flag for you to say, I need to separate from this, or I need to make sure before I go any further that I invite him in because I don't want to do anything or be a part of anything that he's not in support of, and he doesn't have his stamp of approval on. And foundationally speaking, he's not keeping it all together. So with that said, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, again, God bless. Keep fighting that good fight. Keep persevering. Understand that you can lean into God. You don't have to carry this weight and burdens of life by yourself. No storm is too great for him to help you navigate and overcome, so that you can be the best version of yourselves and, of course, be a blessing to others. So until next time, take care of yourselves, everybody.